Hi, Jaimee. Welcome everybody to season 2 of It's Okay Till It's Not. And Jaimee and I are very excited to begin season 2 with you guys. I feel like season 1 was getting our feet wet, kind of talking about some topics that we've heard a lot going on in the community, but we really want to take a deeper dive with season number 2. So Jaimee and I went to dinner the other night, and what came up in our conversation for us was, how do you walk the walk? How do you stick with something that you know will help you the most? And for me personally, when I need something the most, I feel like that's when I shy away from it the most. So that seemed like a topic worth discussing, which I might add, I actually had a friend of mine text me this morning and said, Laura, I got the bed of nails. I asked her how she liked it. She said, wouldn't you know, I needed it more than anything last night. I was struggling last night, but I sat there and looked at it and didn't get on it. And I
Oh,
was like,
wow.
interesting you would say that, because that happens to be our podcast topic for today. So I feel like if it's hitting me, if it's hitting my friend, if it's hitting Jaimee, possibly just so Jaimee can help us, but she'll share. But if it's hitting all of us, then I would assume it's in the collective right now passing through. So it
Yeah.
seems worth discussing and possibly even giving you guys some tools to help you walk the walk, do the practice, use the tools that we've been discussing.
Or at the very least, let them know they're not alone. Because,
Oh, yeah.
clearly, if it's me, you, and then at least one other who've just expressed it in one way that they're experiencing it too. I think this is a day-to-day thing, though. Um,
Right.
Practicing what you preach for me started, like the recognition of it started when I was a personal trainer. And I used to have a lot of people because when you're in that industry, there's extremists in all industries, but when I was in the industry, I chose to do everything natural. Because I competed as well, and so I would do everything naturally. And when I started the bodybuilding circuit, there would be people who would come to me and start asking me about supplements. And I got so frustrated, and I was like, I don't use supplements. And if you're my client or if you're coming to me for that, like I put my foot down and I still won't. And I don't do anything. I wouldn't tell you to do anything I haven't already done or am currently doing. So, and because I wouldn't do drugs, or supplements, air quotes, I wouldn't take on anybody because I wasn't going to coach them through it. And of course, I'm guessing anybody who chose to take them while with me, they didn't tell me. But I started my journey of practicing what you preach, like right then. Excuse
Mhm.
me. I used to work at a restaurant in Phoenix too, that was really healthy. I believed in the concept, and I was so excited to work for them because I could deliver food that I believed in. And I looked around at like 90% of my coworkers, and not a single one of those 90% of my coworkers had the same idea as me. Like they were working there because they knew that they could make money, but at the same time that they're dishing out healthy food, they would go in the back and grab smoke breaks or eat their McDonald's on the way to work or after they get off. And I was like, you're not even considering the concept, but you have the ability to sell it. Kind of like when I go into a dealership and I want to buy a BMW, but the person selling it to me is driving a Ford. No offense, Ford drivers, I had one, but the point is that like if you're not riding with what you're selling,
Right.
it's kind of a weird thing to me. So I've I'm a little bit of an anomaly where I try to practice what I preach, but I feel like this will segue soon enough into like
Mhm.
these day-to-day choices that we're making, which is doing things you probably know you quote unquote should and still don't, right?
Right. Or like you were saying, it's day to day. Some days you do and you do make that choice, and then other days you don't. And when my friend sent me that text today about what she's struggling with and she didn't do some practices that would help her, it came to my awareness that maybe that's also part of the process, right? Just like the people at your work that weren't practicing. But first we have to have an awareness. And so, and we also have to feel uncomfortable enough to want to make the changes. So it could possibly even be that we weren't uncomfortable enough and we actually had to just sit with our uncomfort to have a different self-realization. So was it even wrong that she didn't do that? Or was it that was part of the process? And then when she does do it, she'll even get a bigger benefit of it
Yeah.
because she sat with the process of not doing it.
Yeah.
But again, the underlying thing there was an awareness, you know.
Correct. Totally that, because the all the examples that just ran through my head come to that exact root, is the awareness of it. I have a very dear friend who's a yoga teacher who would spew the most beautiful guidance in her teachings, and then we would have lunch or coffee afterwards, and she would complain about the very thing that her 2 hours of beautiful sermon
Mm.
advice could fix. And I thought, this will, even though it filled my heart and my spirit, and I was like, yes. And then I was like, why aren't you listening to what you were saying
Right,
to the 50 of us in class? Like,
right,
it's such a, and so she hasn't, like, maybe that's part of the stream of awareness that she's coming to, is it's coming to her through her teaching.
right.
Perhaps it's hindsight. I know that we're separated in half, and one is a feeling side and one is a logic side. And for all the people who are listening who claim to be logical people, which I think even in our industry, that we all know that we're creative, but try to reason things out, is that that's not necessarily the most appropriate. The feeling brain is the dominant brain, no matter what you consider yourself as. And so sometimes, if you want to consider yourself a logical person, in order to make these shifts to do the things that we need, is that we have to adjust our logic mind to speak to the feeling mind in order to change. It's not, I'm going to logic myself out of feeling. It's, I'm going to logic, I'm going to feel myself into logic, perhaps, as the alternative, right? Like,
I love that explanation
thank
because
you.
I was just thinking before we jumped onto this to record this podcast, I was thinking to myself, how do you help somebody help themselves? How do you help somebody put one foot in front of the other and start utilizing the practices and coming up with different daily habits? And for me, it comes down to cognitive self-cognitive therapy. So much of it is self-talk,
Yeah.
right? Your
Yeah.
logical, as you were just explaining, the logical brain and the feeling brain, but having the awareness and then talking yourself through that.
Yeah. The in every circumstance, so like, it's ambiguous now for anybody that's listening. It's because we're all dealing with a little bit of something different.
Sure.
But the intent is, for your friend, I don't know him or her, but my she didn't get on this bed of nails and knew that she needed to, right?
Hmm.
And so she could logic herself into saying, I'm guessing it was a her, I just changed to her,
It
so
was a her. Yeah,
okay.
it was.
Or whatever she identifies as. So her getting on it, there was something in between that had to do with a feeling. And this is where it sometimes gets sticky, this,
Okay.
that the feeling is perhaps stemming from a deep-seated belief, is I'm not worthy enough, or I'm not good enough to feel good in my life, or to be worthy of joy, or insert any good feeling here, because something in our past has uh, embedded this belief of not good enough, or
Right.
something of the like, right? And so it's, first we have to understand, that's your awareness. First you have to understand that I resisted getting on this because the results are good and I don't deserve good, or I feel like I don't deserve good. And so the logic gets to hear the feeling, makes not
Hmm.
make sense of. There's no sense to be made about why people don't feel good enough for anything. It's just, it's in there, it's a belief. And so logic has to hold space, if you will, for the feeling to move up into understanding, into compassion, into belief now that you are good enough to feel good.
Hmm.
It's kind of like, even as a personal trainer and as a yoga teacher, every single person who has left the practice or left, personal train or bodybuilder or weightlifting, have all come back to, or the ones that do come back to always say, I don't know why I left this. This feels so good. Or I love when I do this. Why did I stop? Or something of the like, right? So that journey in between is sometimes a little self-loathing, sometimes a little bit of shame, sometimes whatever. And it's all rooted for something that is hidden in our past that keeps us in this place of stuck. And you can't logic stuck. You have to like compassion stuck. And compassion is a feeling. It's a feeling. And
Totally.
yeah. So, and then perhaps change happens. It is not overnight.
Well, I would add even to that that sometimes I think that we get addicted to certain feelings
Yeah.
and we
Yeah.
don't necessarily realize that. So we might be addicted to the pain. I remember I watched a documentary it was Down the Rabbit Hole. Have you heard of that documentary?
Mm-hmm.
So I
That
remember
was the
watching
second
that.
to What the Bleep, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. And so I remember I first watched that. It was before I even had children. And it was really eye-opening to me because for one, it was taking a scientific approach, which always I'm going to listen to more deeply. I don't know why.
Yeah.
And when they talked specifically about how we get addicted to things that you would never think, negative emotions, unhealthy relationships, possibly even being in physical pain. So I would really ask our audience and myself that when we're not doing what we know we need to do for ourselves, when we're not walking the walk, what emotion might we be stuck with? What emotion might we be addicted to? Are we addicted to conflict in relationships? Are we addicted to the poor me mentality, right? Because if we did things to start helping ourselves, then we may not get attention when we complain.
Correct.
about
Right.
about certain things as well. So there's just another way to even look at that on an even deeper level. For myself, for example, I know I feel better when I eat breakfast. And I know it's a silly small example, but I'm using it because it happened this morning. And I started to move away from it because I don't really feel good. And I'm not hungry initially, but then I feel better after I eat. And so this morning I watched myself get ready to embark upon the habit of skipping breakfast again. And I stopped and I was like, what are you talking about today, Laura? Like, practice what you preach, And so I did. So I got an orange and then I made a little smoothie and I felt so much better. And that's just one example of, I know this. Another thing I'll say that has really helped me, for example, with meditation, is to record them. So now having a YouTube channel, I used to do some classes even at the studio that Jaimee ran. And when I'm teaching meditations, I do them more. So teaching also helps me, helping somebody else. It doesn't necessarily have to be teaching. It doesn't necessarily have to be formal teaching.
Right.
But when you're helping somebody else, I think that also helps us to practice what we preach. Because as Jaimee was saying, we have to be in integrity. We don't have to be, but it's going to be much better for us if we teach from a place that we're doing.
Yeah.
I know for myself, I couldn't go in and teach a meditation or a moon ritual that I don't also do.
Yeah. I had a professor in college that was morbidly obese. And I'm going to say that with an asterisk because what I say after this will quantify it, because I don't, in the mindset and body that I'm in now, I understand that shouldn't have bothered me as much as it did then. But here's where I qualify what I'm saying. Is he was morbidly obese and in the nutrition program, and in his statements of teaching elements of nutrition, he would start every sentence with, I know I should be doing this, and then teach this lesson. And it would wig me out. I would shudder, and I'm thinking, and immediately the thought would pop into my head, it's the message and not the messenger. Sometimes it's the message and not the messenger. So sometimes you get your most and best and amazing information from people who are the antithesis to what you're trying to learn and do, right? Like
True. Even the yoga teacher you were talking about, how she
right.
would teach and then you would go to lunch. Yeah.
Yeah. And so sometimes it's for the reflection, sometimes they're in process. Sometimes, like, I have been in habitual, up until now, bad fucking relationships. Bad, terrible. And I I've every
For
time
emphasis,
it was
terrible.
bad.
All caps.
They have been bad. Um that's another podcast. But in these relationships is that I would quit, like I'd be like, oh, I'd build up enough courage to be done, and then I would end up going back and go back, and then I would go back and I would do it again, or I'd pick somebody else just like it and do it again. And so
Mm-hmm.
even though I would coach you or anyone listening of my through their pain of my trials, like
Uh-huh.
even though I can't quite get out of the one I'm in or the many that I've been in,
Yeah.
here's how I can teach you from my hurdles. And I did it until beating my head against the wall finally hurt, and then I was done. And I don't anticipate a revival of
Yeah.
sorts. I feel like we could do another podcast that, because I understand why it happened and why it could
Uh-huh.
potentially happen again if I'm not aware. Um,
Take note that for an upcoming podcast, and
yeah.
just a little segue, anybody out there that is listening that has a topic for us, please feel free to add that in there. It reminds me of how we teach what we need the most. And
Yeah.
so we need to really bring some awareness to what is it that we're teaching, because we know it on one level. Even my daughter said something strange the other day to me, that she just doesn't feel loved. And it just really hurt me, because I'm like, how can you not feel loved? And she's like, I logically know I am, but there's another part of my brain that tells me that I'm not.
Interesting. And that's
Mm-hmm.
just, I mean, she's young enough that this is going to be a process up until she's probably our age, until she could put her foot down to establish, or hopefully through support of others, that it happens much quicker. But if she didn't have you as a mom, and the support that she does have, the love that she does have, and maybe it's just she needs to be loved differently,
Yeah.
right? Or maybe it's
Right.
the absence of love that will teach her that she is in fact loved. So
Mm-hmm.
who knows? I mean, until somebody gets really good and clear with what it is that they're feeling, and this goes back to the two brains, you can logic yourself up one side and down the other.
But
But
unless
and
you feel it.
right, and as I did in all those relationships that I said were
Mm-hmm.
bad, did I tell you that they were bad?
I
But
think you said terrible,
yeah,
but
but the truth is that how bad could they have been? I mean, that's hindsight speaking, because while I was in them, even though that they were bad, um, I still got something from it. And it kind of goes to, who am I, or who would I be without them? Or, these things that we identify with, is who would I be without it? And so I realized that I can be more whole if I wasn't filling myself full of the shit of those relationships. But it
mm-hmm.
took a damn long time to figure it out. So,
Yeah.
and over and over and
So
over
for
again.
anybody listening, I feel like if we were to make some bullet points, to go with this, maybe this is my logical mind going, but it sounds like what Jaimee and I are saying is that, for one, if you're not practicing what you preach, that is actually okay. Just bring some awareness to it, because that's part of the learning process. And we're also giving some tools to start practicing what you preach, with what I'm hearing is having those conversations, that self-cognitive therapy, um, and just doing what you can do, in that moment.
Yeah, you can ask yourself, your higher self, the self
Mm-hmm.
with a capital S, why, and not
Mm-hmm.
necessarily like, why am I not doing what I feel or I know is better or should be better. I wouldn't say expect an immediate answer. And quite possibly, if you get an immediate answer, it's bogus, or it's one that needs to also be lamented, or not lamented, probably meditated on. But it's okay to investigate. But I also offer this to anybody listening, is that because it's so challenging to practice what you preach and to walk the talk, is that we
Mm-hmm.
extend the same compassion to everybody else on the planet. Everybody else, because we are all, I think Brene Brown did a speech or a podcast on this, is that, oh, maybe it was in her book. Nonetheless, she was talking about how asking people if they at any point in their life are doing the absolute best that they can. And I think she said 99.9% of the time when she asked, regardless of the situation that these people were in, everybody is literally doing the best that they can. And even though they can look back and say, I should have done better, they couldn't have. It wasn't in their capacity to do so. So if we're going through these struggles, and the most cliched, right? You don't know what anybody's going through, but everybody's going through something, that we should just be nice and compassionate and kind, because everybody's fighting some battle nobody knows about.
And pay attention to the advice you give to others, because I have a feeling you should go home and sit with it and be like, that was good.
Yeah,
that was
right.
Good stuff. And where can I apply that to my life?
Yeah. Most often when I coach, it comes from, I understand now that it comes beyond me. Like, I have literally watched myself step aside and absorb and observe
Right.
what's
And you're
coming
just
through.
a channel.
Yeah, I'm just a channel. I was like, this isn't mine. Like, I didn't learn this in school, and I went to school for this, but I don't know that I've ever formally learned it. If I did, it was filed back. And so I'm just like, wow, that's good. That's good stuff right there. Like, it's not mine, but it's good stuff.
Well, you have lots of good stuff. You have tons of good gems. So if anybody needs a coach,
well,
Jaimee, for sure.
Likewise. And literal gems you have, speaking of.
So for walking the walk, I picked 4 different gems, and I have to say, I walked the walk on this one. I was so proud of myself that Jaimee and I created a graphic beforehand. I came up with the gems beforehand. Like, I really set with this topic, rather than it being quite as off the cuff, which of course our conversation's off the cuff, but I really set with this topic, possibly because I need this. So Smoky Quartz really came to me. This will help to dispel those feelings that we were talking about, whether you are addicted to certain feelings, whether you're having negative self-talk, whether, like as Jaimee was saying, you don't feel worthy of feeling better. Smoky Quartz is a great stone for helping you to ground, to center, and to dispel all those unwanted feelings. Plus, it's really beautiful. It's also a great stone to meditate with. This is my favorite one.
I have a question for you since you're holding that up. Are you wearing yours at all anymore?
On my neck.
I saw that at dinner the other night. Okay, because I know that you're stacked, the bracelets that you were wearing.
I know. I have a hard time with it in the stack, but I do have one on today.
Nice. And the carnelian too. Good.
Thank you. I have them all on.
I
have them all on. I'm telling you, I was more prepared. So clear quartz, helping you to stay laser focused on your goal. I think another thing that we do just to tap into is that when we walk the walk, or we know there's certain things that we can do, we bombard ourselves with this huge list. And I think narrowing it down a little bit and then building upon that. So one goal with small attainable action steps are really nice. And I think that clear quartz helps to amplify our intention and help us stay laser focused on our intention.
Yeah, I think between those two, if I can add, the laser focused on a goal and the groundedness of the smoky quartz creates a we'll call it endpoints to go with the flow of whatever might happen in between, right? Like that no goal and nothing is straight and narrow. Like the path of life is not straight and narrow. So if you're prepared to know that you have an end result in mind that you set your sights on, you can also turn right, turn left, make a zigzag or a diagonal, and still wind up there. So
and it makes it all worth it too. Correct. You know, even when things are hard, it makes it all worth it, which actually brings up carnelian, because this one is really about sparking our passion. It's about sparking our courage, the playfulness in life. So things don't have to be hard, you know, make them fun, get creative with them.
Yeah, I love carnelian.
Passion. Yeah. And this one's in a heart too, because I feel like, you know, you got to bring your heart into it. And then lastly is, citrine, which is another quartz-based stone. So is obviously clear quartz and smoky quartz. They have quartz in the name, but all four of these stones that I've mentioned, if you have them, if you don't, they're easily attainable. And they're great to also add to your water, just to take the energy inside. The reason I picked the citrine is because it really helps to boost your self-confidence, your self-power, and your self-worth. And this really brings up what Jaimee was saying in the very beginning, is sometimes we don't, even if it's subconscious, we don't feel worthy. If we're staying stuck in a certain place, there's definitely a reason. And I feel like this stone, when I wear it, helps to awaken that reason. It's also connected to the crown chakra and letting that flow come in, so you can connect to divine and have some of those awarenesses or epiphanies about what is going on a deeper level with you. Citrine is often fake, so that's why I'm showing you two pieces, just so you can see real citrine. I should have brought a fake piece because I
Oh,
do
I was
have
going to
one.
ask you which one of those was fake, because both of them are, I mean, I'm not saying
I'd
fake
have to
citrine isn't
leave the
gorgeous.
camera for a minute to get a fake one, but I
Okay.
think it's worth doing.
Okay. We'll hold. I'll fill space. I'm going to add, while she's away, mantra for those of you who are listening that understand mantra. Today, while I was in the shower, I had this thought, and I don't often talk about it, but intuition brought myself to this point of saying, if you're interested in mantra, and mantra just means to free the mind. And usually it's a set of Sanskrit words strung together so that it creates a vibration, and the vibration of Sanskrit is very high, and high vibration literally raises the body's energy. And the mantras are usually rooted around, we know them as deities, but the deities are something that are represented, anyway, whatever. That we're not praying or meditating on something outside of ourselves. We're cultivating something that already exists within. So this isn't like religious based. It will actually help you dive deeper if you choose a religion and into it. So the mantra that while I was in the shower that came to me that I thought I would offer today is to Ganesh, which is the remover of obstacles. And it's rooted in your root chakra. And the root chakra is your belief system, is your fundamental needs. And quite often, like I said earlier, is that a lot of this comes up from deep beliefs that are sometimes imposed on us, and we have to decide later on in life if they are in fact ours or somebody else's. And this will start to part the waters, if you will. So the mantra is Om Gam Ganapatiye Namaha, Om Gam Ganapatiye Namaha, and that just invokes this strength in the root chakra within us. You won't turn into an elephant-headed individual. That happens to be what the deity looks like. I think Laura probably has one close.
Oh my
It's just a symbol of strength within. So I offer that if you are interested in giving a role. That is a beautiful Ganesh.
Isn't it? Om Gam Ganapatiye Namaha. I would even encourage you, if you wanted to embark upon this mantra for removing obstacles. The Smoky Quartz is also connected to the root chakra, so that's a great stone to use with this mantra, meaning hold it in your hand, having it with you when you meditate, but saying it 108 times.
Yeah. Most mantras are said 108 times. It's a very auspicious number. That's something that you certainly can just dive down the Google rabbit hole on your own. We might, if it's of interest, let us know. We can make an entire probably podcast on this. But anyway, it's a nice way to free the mind of these.
And you know what?
Beliefs.
Well, I'll show you this first before I go off topic.
Oh, there is a difference. Look at that.
Yeah. Okay, so most citrines are more orange, and what they are is they're heat treated amethyst, and you can see in the lines.
Oh wow.
For the dyes, okay, and they're more orangey looking. It's not to say it is a real crystal, but it is heat treated or dyed. This one I believe was heat treated. So this is more what natural citrine is going to look like. You can also tell in the price. Natural is going to be quite a bit more. But just so that you can tell, if you want to embark upon any of the stones, or if you just want to wear them, I only do the natural. So
She's our purist. Actually, I only do the natural food,
Yes.
but
And I was thinking that if you guys are interested at some point, and Jaimee and I can talk about it later, but I think it would be really fun if we just did a ceremony,
that'd be nice.
like a moon ceremony where we kind of each did our thing.
Okay.
If we,
We'll get
our
we'll get
thing is
feedback on that.
very vague. You'll have to tune in to find out what the thing
Right.
is.
For those of you who are listening to this, I want to, and only listening to this, if this is something you wanted to see, Laura has these stones on her website, on her Instagram and Facebook, but also this plays as a video on her YouTube channel. And it
Oh,
is,
yes.
what's on your, yeah, because most people won't see this if they're listening to it on a podcast. What's your YouTube channel? Is it just Will to Wow?
I don't know.
Okay.
I think it's Crystal. I think it's Crystal Healing with Laura. But I'm sure if you were to type those in, I'm wondering, can you do a link underneath the podcast with
I
it?
will give it my best shot.
Okay.
Yes.
So, and if not, next time we'll tell you. But surely you can find me on Instagram because I know I'm Will to Wow _jewelry there.
Yeah. And then your Facebook is.
And my
Also
Facebook is also Will to Wild Jewelry. The private group is Crystal Healing with Laura. And then YouTube is in on the bio. On Instagram, you can go to the bio and it'll take you straight to the YouTube and then let me know what I'm called.
I'm pretty sure your YouTube is on your link tree too, on your
It
Instagram,
is. That's what I meant by the bio. Yeah.
Oh, okay. And yeah, and when you said Facebook, I was like, I didn't know they did that. Okay. She's findable, but if you wanted to actually see those gems that she showed, then the only way to do it is through the visual on the video. Otherwise, I'm going to keep all that information to myself. Just kidding. Okay, well, this was lovely.
Yeah.
I'm happy to be back.
Yeah. Season 2, and I hope that you guys feel as motivated as I do right now after talking about this. I'm about ready to go reorganize my kitchen.
We'll check on that next week.
Okay.
We'll see if you did it.
Ooh, I don't have any visual this week. It's so weird.
Yeah, next week we'll be analyze this with Laura. Just kidding. Okay. All right,
so
friends.
much fun.
Yeah, nice to see you, and then we'll see you next week.
Sounds good. Bye, Jaimee.